Hi guys, welcome back to another GTX video. Today we'll be checking out this relatively new card from Asus Republic of Gamers. It's the Mars GTX 760. Now this is a dual 760 GPU card. It's the only one out on the market. Asus was the only company to have rights to make this card. So you won't see another brand with this similar card like this out on the market. First off, you can see typical Republic of Gamers boxes, really nice. A window on the front, and so far you can see how nice the card looks, and just looking through that window it does look like a really nice card. I must say that I haven't really seen a card look this nice for a long time. So some of the main things, first off I'll say that these are two GTX 760s that aren't clocked down. They're not a slimline version of a 760 like you see on other cards, or not other 760 cards, but on other dual GPU cards we've seen in the past. These are two physical 760s. If anything, I believe they are slightly clocked higher than the stock reference 760, so it's just a fraction higher. So your performance of these is going to be exactly or better than two GTX 760s. Straight away I'll say that this will perform better than a GTX Titan in most games. I'm going to do this video in two parts. I'll do a video on covering the card, and then I'll do a performance video later on showing you how it compares to a 780 Ti. But straight away you can see on the box that it references against a GTX Titan. You can't always go by this, but I'll go on later on just to show you how well it performs. I'll also say that this doesn't perform as well at higher resolutions. It's best around your 1080 and 1440p. At higher resolutions it starts to lack the memory that you need, because this does have 4 gig of memory, but it's got 2 gig on each GPU. So when you're using a larger res, it'll mainly just use the 2 gig off the first GPU. So some of the main specs with this card, it's PCIe Gen 3 of course. It's got 4 gig of GDDR5, which I mentioned, and that runs at 6004 megahertz, which is your standard for a 760. Your base clock is 1006 megahertz, and your boost clock is slightly higher than your reference 760s at 1072 megahertz. And it also has 2304 CUDA cores and 512-bit memory bus. So that's pretty much, I won't spend too much time on anything else. I've just put those specs up on the screen if you want to have a look into more those, a bit more detail. One thing is this card does run 20% cooler, it says. We'll test that out as well. The only thing, the downside of this, it does require a fair bit of power. The load on this card I believe is up near the 400 watt mark, so it does require a lot, but it runs about the same noise as a 780, and it runs a little bit cooler as well because it does have the two fans. So jumping straight into the box, first thing you'll notice is you get this little device here. Now this is a tool for, say you have 3 cards in, say you have 2 cards in SLI, because this can only do 2 physical cards because it's got 2 GPUs. It only has 1 SLI bridge connector on there. This is a tool for getting in between the slots and opening up the latches on your motherboard. That will come in really handy. I'll actually just grab a motherboard. Okay, so here's a motherboard I just had sitting on the shop. So what you would do is, I take it it just fits nicely in the notch, providing you have a notch one, whereas most boards are these days. Not many of them use the clip you lift up. So you just stick it in there, it fits in the latch nicely, and then you can just knock it down. So that's a handy little feature that they've done that. And another thing they've done with this, it's also magnetized. So you've probably seen a few case mods around where they got this weird looking thing on the sides of power supplies or on cases. So this will actually just stick somewhere in your case once you finish using it. So that's a really nice little feature they've done there, which I think is a really good idea. Right, so what else we get in the box is a standard HDMI to Dvi adapter, because this card does not have any any HDMI. It has plenty of DVI, which is good to see. And you also get a 2 6-pins from your power supply PCIe to 1 8-pin. So if your power supply has tons of 6 pins, you can use 2 to use 1 8-pin, because this video card does require 2 8-pin PCI Express power connectors to power it. Right, and then we have this nice little sort of case booklet thing. You open it up, You get your device drivers and any apps. It's probably best to hit up the website to get the latest ones, and especially the NVIDIA site to get the latest drivers. And we've also got a little quick start guide with all the information, just in case this is the first time you've used a video card like this before. So I got the card out now so we can have a better look at it. First off, we'll just compare it to a sort of similar card to its range, and that's the 780 non-TI from Asus as well. So it's pretty much exactly the same length. I would say the 780 is a fraction longer, but a main area where the Mars is a bit smaller is if you look at the width of it. So just like that. So if you are using a lot of smaller cases where the height is restricted, like a 250D, similar cases like that, that's where sometimes it catches out the 780, whereas the top heat sinks and the top frame sometimes hits the cover. So being a dual GPU card, it does have a very low profile, which is good to see. Zooming in on sort of the texture and what it's made out of, mainly the top is a sort of a thick plastic design. It does have a really nice texture to it. I wasn't expecting it to be like that. I guess if you're familiar with the Air 540 from Corsair, it uses pretty much exactly the same as what that top's made out of. Doesn't hold fingerprints. You might get a fingerprint for a second, but it just goes away. I really do like how it's like a non-reflective, real shiny type of cover. I think this is a unique sort of look, and it sort of sets it apart. And then we've also got, looks like some aluminium red sort of aesthetic bits as well, which also looks good. Moving on to the top, as I said, with the one-of-a-kind sort of uniqueness of this, having the Mars logo will definitely sort of make it a one-of-a-kind. There's not many cards out there, or not many Mars cards out there. And as for this one with the Mars logo that glows like this, you'll be very few who has this on their case, and you definitely want a case with a side panel. So if you're after a unique card that performs well, this is probably the card you're going to be looking at. Later in the video, in the next video, we'll see if you can turn this light on and off and play around with it. But at this stage, all I know is it pulsates in and out, which still looks pretty cool. Moving on to the right, we have your two 8-pin connectors, one there and one there. And then moving on to the left, we have the standard Sli Bridge connector. There's only one there, so you can put this onto another Mars. You can't do 4 or 3, only because there's 2 GPUs on this card, and that'll give you 4 all up. Moving on to the backplate, it does have a really nice custom backplate. It does look nice. It's kind of got the matte sort of effect as well, which I think looks really good. So you'll probably see this side up in most cases, which does look really well. And it saves you having to buy an aftermarket backplate, which some video cards don't come with, and sometimes people prefer them and they go off and buy them. So it does save you having to buy one. So moving towards the back of the connectors, we have 2 Dvi connectors. So the Dvi eyes combines your analog and your digital. So if you, for some reason, running analog displays or you need a D-sub, you can put in an adapter, and this will allow you to convert it to an analog display. The bottom one is a Dvi-D only. So if you put an adapter, you notice you don't get the 4 prongs. The 4 little prongs on the side is what you need for an analog adapter. Also with these 3 Dvi, you don't need any adapters if you want to run these at screens at 144 Hertz. If you have screens at a 30-inch and you need 2560 by 1600, these 3 Dvi will be able to run each of those. So this is where this card really shines. You don't need any adapters. I've had cards in the past where I had to fork out $100 adapters just to be able to run 30-inch screens for a larger res. This will do 3 straight off the bat. You will have to disable SLI though to maximize all the screens. And then on the right we have just your standard mini DisplayPort adapter. So in the next video I will hook up 3 Asus 144Hz screens, and you'll see these all running together with standard straight through Dvi connectors. So that's pretty much for this part A of the overview and unboxing of this card. I'll just cover one last final aspect, and that's the price. I currently find both of these cards together at an AU price. So I'll compare this to a US price. The Mars is roughly going in the US for $649, so say $650 for the Mars, and the 780 Ti is about $720 from the same brand, which is Asus. So you are saving a bit on the Mars. We'll check out later on in the next video if that's going to be worth it. But straight off, I can probably tell you that if you're doing multi-screen gaming, things like that, if you're using a lot of games that support SLI, the Mars will perform better than the 780 Ti. I guess if you're using a system where you want a 4K resolution or you want an easy output for a 4K setup, probably the 780 Ti might favour you a little bit better, but we'll wait until the next video, do some benchmarks and see how it turns out.